Welcome to the Mainline Podcast. I am Adam Jacquez with your regulars Tyler Burton and Corbin Polson. But today we're joined by a returning guest in Eddie Radosevich, who was kind enough to put us on the map way back in episode 2. And we're excited to have him on again. Eddie, welcome back to the Mainline.
Fellas, what's going on? Congratulations. What is this? I missed that at the beginning, like episode 200 now. So we're moving on to bigger and better things.
I think we're at 80.
Not quite.
Hey, that's not bad.
So
yeah,
we're
creating businesses to sponsor our podcast just to kind of give some street cred. So we're working on it.
Make it till you make it. I'm still doing that. So there's no other way to do it.
Well, Eddie, I know that we're crunched for time. National championship game coming up here in North Carolina and Kansas. So let's just kind of dive right into it, man.
Sure.
Oklahoma began their third week of spring practice today. And Eddie, I just kind of want to start out asking you about the media access so far. You've had the opportunity, multiple opportunities to check out Oklahoma spring practices for upwards of, 40 minutes at a time. So great access to players and coaches on the staff. How refreshing has it been as a media member being able to have proper access covering this team?
It's crazy. I mean, it truly is like a whole new world. In fact, so we got out there. The fourth time was on Friday of last week, and it was kind of one of those things that it was like, are you kidding? Like we're actually going to get this, and they just kind of put that out there on Friday morning, like, hey, yeah, you can come by if you want, and so we're like having to rearrange everything for radio purposes in the morning, but. It's just been insane. It's complete. I won't say it's like completely night and day different, but just in terms of being out there in like a welcoming arena, I guess would be the best way to say it. It's been pretty cool. And, obviously it's a lot different. I mean, I think just the stuff that we've been able to see, it's just not the stretching portions of practice that we've been used to seeing. So, I mean, from like a video standpoint of just getting B-roll of guys, it's been incredible. Brent's been awesome. The new staff's been more than welcoming, and it's just different. I don't know any other way to say it than it's just flat out different than what they used to have. And if you listen to any of the player interviews and stuff that we've had through the first 3 weeks, I mean, it seems like the level of buy-in right now with this Oklahoma team is kind of almost at a level that I don't know. It's like. Of course, you wouldn't think that it's going to be one of those things that they come in and say, yeah, we don't like the new staff or anything like that. But it's almost so over the top and so real that it can't not be genuine. And I think that that's encouraging for the Oklahoma fan base, just knowing that, in the first couple months of the season, and they haven't been out on the practice field for more than, really basically almost a month or 2.5, 3 weeks. And really that only adds up to, I think 2 or 3 practices a week. So like, less than 10 times, really, there's a level of buy-in that, I think is pretty encouraging. And knowing what this coaching staff has been able to put together here, over the course of their careers, it's kind of exciting of, the unknown of what's to come. But the access has been incredible. It's been a lot of fun. And, I hope it continues. I don't like that's kind of the big joke right now is like how many more times are we going to be able to go out there before the spring game? And, we truthfully don't need to go out there probably anymore, but I'm never going to turn down an opportunity to go out there because it's, obviously a lot of fun. And last Friday is like, it just like from a physicality and just like a football junkie standpoint, it was like holy shit, like they're really tackling, like they're really getting after it today. And that was a lot of fun to see.
Well, let's talk about it because go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to say, I texted Corbin and Adam after Brent's, opening press conference. I was like, you know, whenever we listened to, Lincoln Riley, it was like 29:58, 29:59, 30-minute mark. Okay, Mike, we good? And here goes BV, spending 21 minutes in the opening remarks. So it's pretty refreshing.
It was insane. The first time that we talked to him, he had gone back. It was on signing day. So he had the staff basically left Norman to get out of town right after the first signing day in December. And it was like, so we met with him. He was at his cabin or his lake house back in South Carolina, and the connection was terrible. And we basically couldn't use any of the audio because he kept going in and out and stuff. And it didn't work out. And, you would expect him to just be like, okay, we'll get you when we come back or something, and it'd be completely fine. And he ended up sitting with us the next day for like an hour and 45 minutes. holding the cell phone to his face, like on Zoom. And it was just like, there's one thing of like going out of your way to accommodate people, but this was a different level. And even some of the other press conferences that we've had here over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I had him on a radio show. I was like a couple weeks ago. I can't remember what it was for exactly. I think it was just for the start of spring football. And I think we asked him 3 questions, like real questions we asked, and he talked for 20 minutes. So like he's winded, he's long winded, but at the same time, there's a level of passion, a level of like you're the most important person in the room when he's talking to you type of feel. And I can see why somebody goes into his office or goes on a recruiting visit or an in-home. I think it was Kobe McKenzie's parents that talked about how just like dynamic he was when he walked into their home down in Lubbock, and that was even before Kobe recommitted. So that's kind of like a little splice of what you're getting with Brent Venables. And obviously, as much as he talks about relationships and all that kind of stuff, it's very evident that he means it and, is obviously very passionate about what he does.
Well, let's talk on the field, Eddie. You obviously, like we mentioned, you've had some access. If you've been living under a rock and haven't seen, the B-roll from Scoop, fill us in on what you've seen. Maybe we've talked enough about, I think, the mentality of the team. That's become pretty evident. But let's talk players. Let's talk positions. Who's really sticking out to you? Who do you expect maybe to make a jump here in 2022? I'm excited to kind of get your feedback on that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like you can only base so much off of what you see. Obviously, it's kind of cool seeing Dylan Gabriel out there for the first time throwing from the left side. I don't know, I guess I'm a weirdo. Like that's one of the first things that stuck out was just how different it looks and how different it has been with Oklahoma quarterbacks over the last couple of years. But there are guys like when you go out there, Kanai Walker was a kid that really kind of jumped off the page. The transfer in from Louisville. He was a guy that stuck out a couple days ago just because he's so physically imposing. And when you look at that defensive back group, Jaden Gibson, obviously the big 4-star commitment wide receiver that they were able to get at the end of the recruiting cycle last year in Jeff Lebby, like both of those wide receivers, it's like, okay, those guys are both new looking guys just with their length and, and Nick Anderson as well. Both of them kind of jump off at you. But then, when you're talking about guys that I think they're really going to start making an impact next year, obviously Danny Stutzman looks great. Ethan Downs looks amazing in, kind of, I guess, forecasting or trying to picture what they could be inside of Brent Venables' defense. I think that, obviously Jeffrey Johnson was really impressive. He was one of the first guys that we talked to, the defensive tackle from Tulane, the transfer that came in. McCade Matower looks really good. Savion Byrd looks incredible. Like it's also kind of one of those things, with as many question marks about the offensive line going into next season, we kind of want to wait to talk to Bill Beatenbow until maybe that week before spring football. Before the spring game, just because you can't really they haven't really done a whole lot through the first, handful of practices. But, Tyler Guyton looks like a guy that is absolutely humongous. The TCU transfer, a bunch of guys that are down there right now, and specifically all those, the new transferred in guys out of the portal. I think that Brent talked about it right at the at National Signing Day, or right when we were able to talk to them when they got them in those first couple of weeks. It's like you can tell that it was a thought out process as far as getting guys in there. A Jeffrey Johnson, a guy that was a captain on the team last year. TD Roof, for a certain extent, was a captain at Appalachian State. Obviously Jonah Lalua is a kid that, you hear Miguel Chavis and he just raves about what he could be, knowing that he has a kind of a future and, 3 more years left of eligibility. So, those are certainly guys that all jump off the page. Javante Barnes, just from a physical standpoint, the running back out of Las Vegas, looks absolutely incredible. I think that him and Marcus Major, and talking with Eric Gray, those 3 guys are going to certainly be guys that you keep an eye on here moving forward. And, specifically with, I'm sure that you guys know with how much they're going to want to be able to run the ball and kind of get back to a little bit of a smash mouth north-south game. I think that it's going to kind of be fun to see which one of those 3 guys really ends up kind of taking the lead role. I'm excited to see what Marcus Major can do. But at the same time, it's like you talk to Eric Gray and he is very well spoken and very like professional about how everything
Mhm.
goes. And he knows that last year probably wasn't the type of year that he thought he was going to have. For the same matter, another guy that came from Tennessee along with him is Wanye Morris, like one of the all time. And we talk about it on the Scoop Pod all the time. It's like, what happened to Wanye Morris? Like he played a lot at Tennessee as 2 years ago, and then comes over here and he just never really could sniff the field. So, those are some guys that obviously stick out. And then you have kind of the guys that return and guys that were, key role players a year ago, whether it be a Woody Washington or whether it be a DJ Graham, who speaks extremely highly of Jay Valai as a cornerbacks coach. So, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what shakes out at safety as well. I know that like at the end of the last week, the big news was with Justin Harrington, and you know, for a walk on safety, I don't know if you'll find a better walk on quote unquote safety coming in next year. So, I would imagine he gets back on scholarship at some point, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of really good looking guys. Like, and that's like the crazy thing about this whole like new staff and like everything that's going on down there right now is, it's a really good staff taking over a program that didn't necessarily just fire a coach because they went 3-8. It was a program that, quote unquote underachieved because they lost 2 games in the regular season. So, that's exciting to a certain extent. And, I think it's going to be, obviously, as you guys know, like just how it all comes together. And over the next couple of months, everybody stays healthy and goes through the summer with Schmitty and all that kind of stuff. Uh, you know, it's going to be super kind of exciting to see how it all comes together. Uh, you know, Next season.
Yeah, I think it was after the first practice of fall camp last year that Bill Beanbo said that this was the most excited he'd been about an offensive line group since the Joe Moore Award winner. So I'm we
Yeah,
all know how that played out. So kind of tampering my expectations with that until we at
sure.
least see him play a game next year. But Eddie, kind of transitioning here, you guys do such a good job at Sooner Scoop, covering the world of recruiting. And it's been fun to see some big changes in recruiting with this staff compared to the last one. Putting a strong emphasis on the Southeast, making OK Preps a priority, trying to build a wall around the state of Oklahoma, and really, kind of going back to focusing so much time and effort on the DFW area. But there is one thing that Brent does that I'm not quite sure how well is going to translate. How it's going to play in today's age with these kids, and that's not accepting a kid's commitment until he's ready to shut things down and not take any more visits. So I just don't know how you can do that in the year 2022 where social media is such a popular thing and kids,
Yep.
want to have all the attention. They want people to know where they're going, taking pictures, posting visits. So do you think this is something that Brent can stay with, or do you think there's going to be an adjustment period as we move into the future?
It's going to be super interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like just knowing how everything is right now. It's going to be kind of insane, and you're kind of playing with fire in a way. Is like if you're going to make some kids wait, or if you try to get them to buy in early, and repeatedly. It's a staff message that they
Mhm.
want guys that are only going to be in for the long haul, and you know, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle this. And especially if you say get to, middle of December and you only have 12 commitments or something because of the ideology that they want to go with, or with the game plan or the strategy that they want to use. It's going to be interesting if they try to adjust it. And, I think that, obviously Brent's not stupid. The staff isn't stupid. I think that they can kind of read the tea leaves as far as like what is out there, and it will be interesting to see how if they get any pushback, or if they get any buddy that says or how many kids that they get that say I want to commit, but I'm not all in. But necessarily, if you say that, when you say it out loud, it doesn't really sound like you're actually committed. So Brent does have a way with, I think kind of making people, believe in their decisions, and obviously, kind of the sales pitch that they're throwing out there right now. So I'm super interested as much as anybody in how this works. And, you get on the backside of like the first couple junior days that they've had. It sounds like everything's gone really successful. But at the same time, you haven't had those celebrations of big commitments either. And I think that, obviously that's what the fan base they want to see. But at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're getting their signature at the end of December or the middle of December. So why does it really matter at the end? So, or I mean, as a whole. But yeah, I really don't know. It's like I'm just as leery as you guys are, it sounds like, just kind of not one or kind of wondering how it is all going to work out. But at the same time, they did such a good job in closing in December. And maybe it worked out for them just because they were kind of up against the clock. And so were those kids looking for spots. But at the same time, they had to sell a program on, just basically a belief and not really knowing a whole lot about what was going to happen around the other corner. So, uh, you know, they have a certain way with being able to sell the program, and I think that like a certain level of buy-in, just in kind of what we've been able to see here over the first couple months, and that's kind of where like the soul mission project or whatever they want to call it kind of comes into play too. Like I can't tell you how many times we've talked to these guys, and we're talking to David Wegbu today. Just as far as like he talks to Curtis Lofton every day, and it's like Curtis Lofton is basically he's like an on-field coach without being an on-field coach, if you will. And, that's kind of their way of getting around some of this kind of stuff. And, that's been super interesting to see, as well as the support staff that they've built around them. And, those are kind of built-in processes, I think, that I guess in a way serve as kind of some answers to what they haven't been able to do, if that makes sense. And I think that, there is going to be such a momentum and such a build up and buy-in, and especially if things are going well during the middle of the season, that maybe you do get a couple more guys that maybe weren't so apt to buy in with the previous staff. And I think that's going to be particularly interesting to see. And at the same time, it's like I guess the glass half full side of this too is you know how many times has Oklahoma gotten a commitment from a kid during the summer or a commitment from a kid during December? I mean, leading up to December, and then he decommits in October or he decommits in July and says, I just wasn't ready. Like, I see both sides of it. Like the kind of I guess not the underwhelming feeling of when a kid decommits, but kind of knowing like, well, yeah, I could see that. He wasn't ever going to really last. But at the same time, it's like, and this has been Josh McQuistion, who I work with over at Scoop. He's always been like, why wouldn't you want to sell, insert whatever ranked player is committed, and you can sell that for as long as he's in the class, and then when he isn't, obviously, you got to re-recruit him. But recruiting's so crazy nowadays. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe this will be the new wave of stuff.
Yeah,
we'll see. Before we jump into the next question, I want to remind everyone that they can find us on Twitter at the Mainline Pod, as well as our new YouTube channel, the Mainline Podcast. We'll have some segments up from this interview as well as future podcasts up there. So check us out there. And if you've enjoyed the podcast so far, make sure to give us a review on Apple Podcast if you are so kind. We would greatly appreciate that. So Eddie, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. As far as going into this year, the Big 12 championship game, other than OU, we haven't seen a team repeat a performance in back-to-back years. It's always been a surprise team that's shown up kind of, off the radar. Are there any teams that you're looking at maybe besides OSU or Baylor that might make an appearance in that game?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, is OSU off the radar? I guess people wouldn't expect them to get back, but I mean, they're not losing much. Obviously, they're going to have to replace Malcolm Rodriguez, but they get some guys back on the defensive line. If Spencer Sanders can, I guess, in a way, just continue the progression that he has, I think they're going to have some question marks at the wide receiver position. But, I don't think anybody's ever really been worried about Oklahoma State producing guys, or at least guys to be able to catch the football. It seems like they've had a good amount of talent up there, and also guys coming in. I mean, I think Shetron will probably play pretty early, as much as Oklahoma fans don't want to hear it. But, I would say OSU and Baylor obviously are going to be two of the schools that are right up there. I don't know. I'm not just in love with what Baylor has coming back at the quarterback position. Obviously, they made most of their meat on the defensive side of the football last year, but Dave Aranda, they're probably going to just reload with what they have. Here we are again in the middle of the offseason, and Texas is a sexy looking team to look at on paper. There's no reason why they shouldn't be good. Like I tell myself I'm always gonna not do this, but I think Quinn Ewers is going to be really good. Obviously with the talent around him is extremely kind of sexy in a type of way that you go, I think in the back of all Oklahoma fans' minds, they go, what if he is the guy that they've been kind of waiting on? But at the same time, it's like we've done this for the last decade and a half, it seems like, as far as waiting for Texas to turn that corner and be the team that everybody thinks they're going to be in the preseason. And who knows how that Alabama game is going to go early in the season if things get haywire there. Who knows? Are they going to be a typical Texas team? And then you kind of fall back on this idea that, is Steve Sarkisian just kind of not that guy as a head coach? Who knows? I don't know. I think Iowa State's going to fall off. I hate to say that way, but it's kind of funny. And we were talking about this at the end of last season. I remember, just as far as like, is Matt Campbell really that guy that everybody thought he was going to be? And, his stars kind of dimmed a little bit just as far as what they are. That's not to say that I don't think that Iowa State's still going to be a decent football program. TCU's kind of interesting just because I don't know. I don't know why that thing fell off as much as it did over the last couple of years. I kind of like Sonny Dykes and what he did at SMU, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Kansas State's kind of interesting just because you feel like Kleiman had that thing headed in the right direction, and then they ran into a bunch of injuries a year ago. But, they're another team. It's like, am I really in love with what they're doing at quarterback? So, there's a bunch of those teams that it feels like, I don't know about you guys. It feels like the Big 12 outside of, and Oklahoma's kind of in a little bit of a limbo situation, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, just because of the unknown. At least nationally, I think that that's the way it's going to look, even though, for people that follow it closely, know that they have a lot of talent returning. It's just going to be a matter of what Jeff Lebby can get out of this offense. And, and then obviously the biggest question mark just as far as what they're going to do at quarterback, but, or not what they're going to do, but is Dylan Gabriel going to really be that guy that can take them to the next level? And, it's wide open. It feels like, to get to Arlington. And, I think that that's why if you're a Texas fan, or if you're an Oklahoma State fan, or a Baylor fan, or obviously an Oklahoma fan, you have to feel at least decently pretty good about the way things are, at least your opportunity going into 2022, because there are just so many unknowns. And, I have no idea what to think of Texas Tech, but, Matt Wells, I like Matt Wells, obviously a great pickup for Oklahoma. It's a good thing that it happened to him because OU's going to benefit from it. But, I love Joey McGuire, and I think that he's building something out there. I just don't know how quickly that thing's going to be able to turn around. And obviously, the way that the season ended for them, and, they did have, I guess, a couple quarterbacks coming back that they can build around. It's just going to be a matter of, kind of flipping the switch for them. But I don't know. Even Kansas is like, I think I read like an early projection is like, Kansas might be able to win 3 games next year. And for Kansas to do that, maybe 2 conference games. I mean,
Texas
we'll see.
And somebody else.
Yeah, they have Texas on the schedule, so we know that they at least have a win maybe out there. No, I'm joking. I would love to see Texas get back to, what Texas should be, or what we believe Texas should be. And, that's at least a step above respectable. And they just haven't even been that. So, I don't want to put it down to all onto one player, but if Quinn Ewers can be, I think a guy that everybody feels like he could be, maybe OU Texas again in the Big 12 championship. That'd be a lot of fun.
Eddie, real quick, I know we want to touch on softball and baseball with you quickly,
Sure.
But I just have a quick hitter. OU makes the college football playoff in 2022 if what? What needs to happen?
Expansion? No, I'm kidding. I mean, like this is the thing, though. It's like if you're Oklahoman, because of the name brand and because of the logo on the helmet, and I think that everything that will go into next year, they have a what I would call a decently easy schedule with the the Nebraska non-con game. I guess is a little scary if you're just looking at it from a perspective of this is the first time Brent will take a team on the road. This is the first time that Dylan Gabriel really thrown into something like that. There's always that what if Oklahoma goes up there and turns the ball over 3 or 4 times, obviously, and it's going to be a huge game up in Lincoln. It's going to be kind of, I think, what will be branded as, what they hope would be their coming out party up there. But at the same time, I think Oklahoma's still back into the same old, and I guess it's kind of arrogant to say it this way, but it's like they win. If they go 11-1 or 12-1, I think that they have a really good chance to get up there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of banking on a lot of stuff to go as planned, and a lot of unanswered questions being, I guess, kind of answered in a way. But I think that if they can just kind of do what they typically do, and I know that sounds arrogant with all the changes, but at the same time, it's just the matter of the fact. And I think that if Oklahoma can win the Big 12, obviously they'll have just as good of a chance as anybody to get into a playoff. And that's kind of the world that we live in. If you're one of the blue blood programs and you put up a good record, they've shown time and time again, if they're going to stay at 4, a school like Oklahoma is going to have a chance every year. I mean, hell, they almost got in last year, and their damn coach left them in the middle of the night. So it's like, it's just crazy to think about, like, especially all the, like, what ifs. What if Caleb Williams breaks off the run in Bedlam and they end up winning like in overtime and then go to the Big 12 championship? Like, Lincoln Riley's still the head coach probably at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
maybe
the whole thing is like, it's crazy to think about, though.